What really made you take the decision to run for the Senate? We can start there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody wants to know what your motives are and what you're getting into it for. And I hadn't really had a desire to get into politics or be involved in politics a whole lot, other than going and casting my vote. But that drive to serve was still there. And when I got out of the military and got back to Oklahoma, I started working in the oil and gas industry. Did that for about 6 or 7 years.
I'm here today, guys, with David Nelson. David is running for the District 8 Senate here, the special election, and welcome to the table.
Good morning. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So we're going to have a little chat, little talk today, and for people to get to know you a little bit. Tell me a little bit about yourself to begin with. I know you are a Army veteran.
Yes, sir.
And I know a little bit about you, but not enough. So.
All right. Well, I'll just get started. Name is David Nelson. I was born here in Oklahoma, raised up most of my life here in right in Senate District 8. Mostly in the Okmulgee County. Started life off as a kid being born to a young lady who was a teen mom and couldn't keep 2 kids, so she did the best decision that she could ever have done for me and put me up for adoption. So I was adopted at birth to a wonderful, loving, godly family and was raised up right here in Oklahoma. In our district, made it to Morris eventually after I went to school in a couple other schools around the county, and that's where I met my wife. And we met when I was 14, she was 15, and we've been together ever since. Haven't missed a day. We're about to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary this year. Graduated from Morris, and then from there, couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my life. And like a lot of young men do, they joined the military and took off on a military career with no plans of staying in for 20 years, but that's just the way it ended up. During that time, I spent kind of my military career broke down into two different sections. I had the first 10 years where I was an enlisted man. I spent most of that time in the U.S. Army Rangers doing the special operations things with them, and then on my 10-year anniversary in the military is about when I switched over and became a warrant officer and went to fly Blackhawk pilot. So it was kind of funny. 9/11 happened. I did a couple tours to Afghanistan. We came back to Iraq. I went back to Afghanistan again, and while I was in Afghanistan is when I was notified that I got picked up to go fly helicopters. So took off after that. Went to the 101st Airborne Division, flew helicopters for them for about 6 years. During that time, did 3 more tours, 2 in Afghanistan, 1 more in Iraq. And then by that time came around, I was about 17 years in and pretty wore out, so it was time to retire. So I took a
17 years.
That was when I decided it was time to retire and go take a desk job, and went to the training base down at Fort Rucker, Alabama.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting because you were almost 3 more years, and you could have.
Well, I did. That's when I decided to take a desk job for my last few years and retire. Okay. So I did 20 years and 19 days. Ended up retiring just a little over 20 years.
Right. So.
And then came back. We were trying to make a decision where we wanted to move after we retired, and looked around different places, different jobs, and just had this desire to get back to home because my home community, home state supported me so much while I was overseas. I wanted to get back, re-engage with my community, and serve them again, and try to give something back to them because they served me while I was gone.
That thing being overseas gets a little tiresome after a while.
Homesick never goes away. You always want to get back home.
Tell me about it. I had a job where I was 9 months out of the year for almost 15 years, 15 years. Yeah. Never home. 9 months out of the year I was on the road.
Just ready to be settled.
And that's, I obviously have prepared a few questions here today, and what really made you take the decision to run for the Senate? We can start there.
Yeah, that's a great question. Everybody wants to know what your motives are and what you're getting into it for. And I hadn't really had a desire to get into politics or be involved in politics a whole lot, other than going and casting my vote. But that drive to serve was still there. And when I got out of the military and got back to Oklahoma, I started working in the oil and gas industry. Did that for about 6 or 7 years. Started to have that kind of burn to serve again in some capacity. Couldn't really figure out what it was. Became involved with our local Lions Club. Started serving there. Became the president of there. Was very active in our church. Started to serve in our church. Became on the leadership team of our leadership ministry team. Was the chair of that that section of our church. And then as time went on, just, the desire never went away. And about 2 years ago, it may have been last year, I went my whole hunting season without shooting a deer. And I blame that on because I spent most of my time in the deer stand praying about this, because deciding if it's what I wanted to do, and if it was what I was going to do, I was going to do it for the right reasons, not to seek a title or to have recognition, but to do things for my Oklahomans and fellow statesmen to serve.
Is there anything specific that you would like to touch on once, if you are elected? Is there anything specific that is really close to your heart?
I'm not one of those people or politicians, you see a lot of them that will have something that's happened to them or some issue or topic that they've been affected by, that they want to, carry that as their platform and really drive home on. I don't really have one of those topics. I don't want to go into it with blinders on, just focused on one thing. So what I tell people is I'm going in with a leadership and unity role. That's my whole intent.
Right.
Taking a look back at the Oklahoma, we are a very, very red state, and from the outside looking in, it looks like, man, we can get a whole bunch done. A lot of Republicans, we can get everything done. But then when you look at the Republican Party, they're separated quite a ways, from one side to the other. So it's still very difficult to get anything done and get everybody to agree on something. So what I would love to take is professionalism, leadership, unity, and as a peer leader, you can do that from your freshman, your freshman year.
Absolutely.
No matter who's up top making the decisions up there, the guys in the ranks, you can do a great job influencing getting people to come together for a common solution.
And that gets into the what we have seen over the last few years, the polarization that has happened. It's not just polarization between two different parties. Exactly. There's also quite a lot on both sides, quite a lot of polarization between the same party.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason this
how do you
seat
plan
has
to
opened
deal?
up.
How do you plan to deal with that?
Well, we just got to get back to the basis of what our party stands for, and make sure that everybody is not hasn't sold out, not influenced by outside monies or any other influences, and we get back to the basics of what our platform is as a party.
Right.
And get together and agree on that. And it's not an easy task by any means, because everybody has their topic, has their issue that they deal with, and they have a line on where where they dig their heels in and where they're going to draw the line on where they stand on either side of even our own platforms, policies or ideologies. But I think it can be done, and the more people we get in there that are like-minded and are willing to work together without compromising our morals or ethics, then I think we're going to be in good shape.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that, me being an outsider, being from a different country with an entirely different political system, I think it's harder to navigate the two-party system than it is to navigate what we have, a monarchy that has a parliament with roughly about 6 or 7 political parties inside it, because they have to work together, because none of them ever get their own majority. So from that point, it's hard. But I also see now in the polarization that has happened, I have seen the common sense people on both sides trying to meet up in the center of things. Is that a feeling that you have too?
I do get that feeling. I think we're getting there. Getting that accomplished is going to be difficult, because it's almost like you got two parties or two groups within the same party that feel very different about each other. I mean, the election of the leadership in the Senate was decided by one vote. So there's a separation there. And I think there's great ideas, there's great policy, there's great bills that have been put forth that could be very successful, but they can't get together and agree on making that bill happen or making it pass. And that's where I think we need more peer leadership within the House and the Senate, specifically to get people together, and let's get together and agree on it. Put our personal differences aside, put our personalities aside, and do what's best for the Oklahomans. Right.
Is there anything you can talk about, for instance, if you get into the office, how you would approach the stimulation of growth, financial growth within the state? Is there
A couple ways to approach that. One thing is, which I love what Donald Trump has done with the Department of Government Efficiency. And the House of Representatives in Oklahoma has also put forth a site you can go to submit your findings and submit ways to fix where you see inefficiencies in the government, which I've already used that. I'm a tag agent in Morris, so I get to see taxpayers face to face on a daily basis, and I get to hear what goes on there. And then working as a license operator for the state of Oklahoma,
Right.
I can see some things that can be improved upon, and I've already submitted findings there. So 2 ways to go about it: reduce spending, find efficiency, be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and also not increase taxes, but increase taxpayers. Let's get more people in the state. Let's increase our population and make the state a place desirable for people who want to come to live. When I was getting ready to retire from the military, we did a lot of research on which places are going to be the best for us to retire based
Right.
on what the taxes were in that.
Right.
What are the property taxes? What is the insurance like? What are the registration and all these other things? And me specifically, as a veteran, will my veteran benefits, or will my retirement pay and disability pay, will any of that be taxed, and how does that? So there's a lot of decisions to be made. So if we can make ourselves a more marketable, more desirable state to live in, then we get more taxpayers, and that will increase our tax income to the state. And I can see that happening. We see a lot of people moving in from Colorado, California, other states, and man, I welcome them. I like, welcome to Oklahoma. Thank you very much. Be here, but don't California my Oklahoma.
I have my ideas around that, and I think, especially Colorado and those areas, they want to get out of the blue states.
They do, and it's a shame because they're beautiful states, and I wish politics weren't getting involved in making people want to move away from where they were born and raised.
Well,
but
you can look at California that has lost, I think, over 10 years, 3.5 million in population or something like that. So
yeah, there was a deal about all the U-Haul trucks. They were all heading east, and there was nowhere to find one back west because they all headed east and stayed.
They can't find one in California, because they all come out here. They have to transport the truck back on trailers,
right.
To get that. But that.
And further on that, reducing taxes. I don't know if I answered your question there. Reducing taxes, sure, we want to reduce taxes, but it's got to be done the right way. We can't just hey, we're yanking this tax out and not have a way to make it up somewhere. It's got to be methodical, well thought out, and have a plan, a balanced budget. We all love the thought of less taxes and stuff, but we can't dump our state on its head just to get a vote because we made a bill that said we were going to reduce taxes.
No. Now I believe personally, I believe there is other ways to increase tax revenue, and I looked at Trump's first year, 45, when he did the tax cuts, our revenues actually went up. I don't know if you looked at that, but they were around 2.5, 2.6 somewhere trillion, and it went all the way, I believe, to 4.2. I think while we still had a tax cut.
Yeah.
And don't you believe that some of that actually stimulates the economy?
Sure.
More people get hired, and with more people hired, the tax base increases.
And George W. Bush had that kind of same theory when he did the tax incentives and gave a lot of people their money back, which means there's more money out there for people to spend, and they're going to buy more things, and that's going to increase revenue and increase taxes here.
Yeah.
Definitely something to be said about that.
Yeah. I think personally, that is an important part.
That's a great ideal in itself because that's how we feel as Americans, right? Put the money, put the businesses, put everything back in the hands of the Americans and let them build this country. It's what we did originally.
Where do you see yourself, and where do you stand when it comes to health care? I know health care in this country is a huge problem, expensive, and we can go further on that because I have some ideas on why it is so expensive in this country. Where do you stand on that?
Healthcare is that's a hard one because there's so many different levels to it, and there's, insurance involved, pharmaceuticals are involved, and then workplaces are involved in what they charge for their healthcare and the insurance that they provide. That's a really tough one that I would have to take a good a good deep look into to find out what the solution is for decreasing the cost of healthcare. I know doctors and hospitals have to have money to run, but it seems like when you see this huge disparity in the difference of two different drugs at two different locations, but not by a few dollars, but by hundreds of dollars, if not thousands, there's something wrong there, and it's got to be looked into and investigated. And I'm really grateful and thankful to see that RFK Jr. is on the staff to get the country healthy again, and the position the president has put his in. And I think we need to model that and do the research. And healthcare would be less of an issue if we were a more healthy country. I'm not saying we don't need healthcare, but I'm saying there would be a lot less requirements on it. If we were a more healthy country, if our food was cleaner, if we were more disciplined in not only what we personally put on our plates, but what the government allows to be put on our plates. Because when we only have certain choices to eat of food, and that food has got stuff in it that shouldn't be in it, we're in a real bad spot.
And I personally think, looking at all that, with what's allowed in this country to go into food, if you start reading the labels, in many countries, it's not even allowed.
It is not.
Why is that?
I did that when I was overseas. I would look at labels over there and compare them to back here. My son just did a 6-month tour in Qatar, and while he was over there, he was sending us, bags of chips, and we would look at the nutritional stuff on each one, and they're vastly, vastly different. And why that is, I'm really not sure. And RFK did a research on it. We were one of the heaviest percentage-wise vaccinated countries during the COVID pandemic. Yet we were one of the heaviest countries that had the most deaths because of that. And the research showed that we were one of the most unhealthy countries, and that COVID was getting Americans at a higher rate because of how unhealthy we were. It was easier to put someone over the edge, into the spot where they couldn't return from the COVID sickness, that a lot of other countries didn't, because on general scale they're healthier and less obesity in those countries. And I think that has greatly to do with the food.
I personally had COVID twice. And I was in the danger zone, with my age. I'm 71 years old, so I was in the danger zone.
But you look fit, you look healthy.
I look.
You made it.
Number one, I think I'm fairly healthy, but I also followed the non-science of D vitamins and other things, and I just propped myself full of it. And
but then it goes
back 3 weeks, and I was back to normal.
Trying to be as healthy as you want. If the only options you have is the food that has the bad things in it, the dyes and everything else, unless you're out there growing your own food in your own backyard, you don't know what's in it, and the government can put whatever in it they want. And we need to get all that out.
All right, so that's cool. We'll leave the health care for now, and then we go to a little bit about agriculture. I believe our agriculture in District 8 especially is a huge contributor to the economy. Where do you stand there a little bit?
Huge contributor. And like I said, I work at the tag office, and I get those guys in there tagging their farm trucks and all that stuff. And I had a few conversations with them recently. It actually came up because of the wind turbine thing. And we were having a discussion about, the green energy and then the wind turbines and the solar energy and the green deal coming up. And I asked them if they had heard of anything, how it affects their crops. And we got into a conversation on that one. But no, I agree with you. Agriculture is huge. One of the biggest areas, I live right in the middle of a whole bunch of different farm fields. I leased some land from one of my farmer buddies to do some hunting on. It's one of the most important things we have to protect, and we have to serve our farmers and ranchers right, because I don't think people understand when we lose land, we're not making any more of it. Once that land goes away to have concrete poured over it or something else standing on it, we don't have that land to farm or to raise cattle or anything on. And the land that's on it, we have to take good care of that land, because if we don't have good land for the crops to grow
and you meet a lot of resistance on that from the I would say, I call them the globalists. You meet a lot of resistance. I mean, they've taken it to such an extreme. They want to get rid of cows, and they want to.
I don't see
sick.
a world where it's ever going to be a good place if we're creating all of our food in a lab. We have to do it the way God intended. Let the sun shine.
Yeah.
Let the things grow. Let the cows eat the grass, and let us eat the cows. That's the way it's got to go in a healthy
Ed
manner.
Jolly said something. Let the cows do their thing.
That's
and,
right.
And fart, and we just put mufflers on them.
Yeah.
So there is one environmental concern, and you touched on it a little bit. I don't know if you have studied that in depth, anything, but that is the wind turbines and that.
I looked into it a little bit once it kind of became the squeaky wheel. Everyone was talking about it. It became a bigger deal. I know they've been out western Oklahoma. They've been in Texas for quite a while. And then so I started doing a little bit of research on them, and there's a lot to be researched still. There's still a lot of information we don't know, and that's part of the reason why I don't think we're ready for them yet, especially when the government's going to give subsidies to these companies that want to come in and take over large areas of land. And the research for the windmills, what they bring with them, what they're going to leave behind when they're gone, and all of that needs to be done before we can accept them. The whole green energy thing, I just don't think we're ready for yet. Somewhere in the future, there's an alternative energy source that we need to be looking at. I just don't feel like this is it yet. I don't feel like the research has been done. We know we've heard things about the blades leaving fiber materials across the crops, and now farmers can't feed that hay to their animals. That's a huge concern. I've heard we got to fight the right way, though. I heard something about the wind turbines put off some sort of magnetic field that affects helicopters and aircraft, what they flying around. Well, I'm a helicopter pilot, and I saw some when I was flying out West Texas, and I went over to fly around them just to check them out and see what they look like, and I didn't fall out of the sky. So what I researched and found on that was that the magnetic field off of them was about the same as a household appliance. So that's what I mean. Research has to be done. What are the short-term, long-term effects? If someone wants to put one on their property, we don't ever want to infringe on anyone's property rights. That's some place we don't ever want to go, but we do want to protect them from putting one on their property rights. Putting one on their property, that company goes out of business. Now they're left there with this wind turbine that's going to fall apart, dilapidate. Now you're left with it on your property. Who's to come in now and say, all right, this needs to be cleaned up? Now you got the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, the EPA saying, all right, here you're getting fined for this every day until this is properly cleaned up to the, EPA standards. Who's to say that you're not protected from something like that?
Well, landowners probably, in my view, should be protected from that. If the government approves the manufacturer and producer of energy to come in and put these things up, then the government should be held responsible for taking them down.
They should be, but do we know
if
they
they go
are?
out of business? Because I think personally, I think these guys are coming in here with huge contributions and grants and other things from the federal government. And I don't know if but that's the way I feel about it. And I think it is part of the truth that because of that. And I was looking at it, why Oklahoma and northern Texas has become the big place where they want to put all these things. I know there are some in Arizona and California, but Oklahoma has a lot of them already, and it's a fairly small state. How many people live here? Like 5 million?
Something like that.
4 or 5 million people, right?
More so every day, I know that.
Yeah, and that's good.
That's very good.
In the event you win, how do you plan to stay in touch with your constituents?
This day and age,
hypothetically here, if you become a senator.
No, exactly what we're doing right now, keeping my voice out there, letting everybody know where I stand, what's happening. I really like what our county does. We have, and actually I'm going to attend one here in a couple days. They have legislative sessions that the chambers offer, where our senator and representative will come down, weekly, monthly, and just give updates on what's going on in the House during session or out of session, and then they take take questions from, their constituents. And the ones that can't make those, just make yourself as available as possible as you can.
Are you guys having any debates for the
We've got a debate coming up for the 5 that are still currently active in the Republican primary, coming up February 1st, and that'll be at OSUIT in Okmulgee.
In Okmulgee.
Yep, and they're hosting that one.
Because we are thinking that once we get through the primary in April 1st, because it's more than likely, in my view, it's going to be a runoff somewhere.
Sure, I agree.
I think it'd be hard to
avoid
get that 50 plus 1 for a single candidate. It would surprise me.
I agree.
But from April till May, the general election, we're planning on having a debate, and that would be done between the 3 different parties.
Yeah, and that's a great way to do it. And you guys have got, you showed me your numbers. You guys have got a great voice, great platform. You reach a lot of people from here.
We're trying. We're trying, and I think it's important, even for candidates. I know we worked a lot with the Democratic candidate in the general election, and what's his name, Fettgatter?
Fettgatter, yeah.
We worked a lot with
16,
him, and I think it's important for everybody to get their voice out.
And it's important for them to get their voice out, be there, be available, and don't be afraid to get out there. People are not going to like you. I've already ran across that. They aren't going to like you, and you just can't worry about it. You are who you are. Give them who you are, and I'm going to run my campaign based on my character and who I am, and not someone else's lack of it. Not to say that we don't have some great candidates, because we do. I'm friends with a few of these guys, and I think they're all going to be great. But my focus isn't going to be on what they do. It's going to be focused on what I am and who I am and what I can offer. And just give that to the people and let them decide.
And you have a very specific background too when it comes to the military. You served there for many years, and that gives a little different insight.
I'm very proud of that, but I'm also very proud of the things that I do that I don't get a paycheck for. Like volunteering for my city, volunteering in my church and Lions Club and things like that in my local community. We did we had an old World War II Pearl Harbor survivor that lived in our town, and he was getting up there in age, and man, I didn't really want to bother him. He was getting ready to move out to California with his kids to kind of take care of him, and I said, man, we need to do something to recognize this guy. And as you're driving down that road, sometimes you see those signs on the side of the road that say a memorial highway or a bridge named after someone, and it hit me. It's like, man, we need to do that. I need to figure out how to get that done. And then called my representative, Fettgatter, as you mentioned, and man, we worked on that project for a year or so, got it passed, and got his family back in. He had passed away before we got it done, which is typically the case when a memorial highway is announced. But got his family back from California and had a nice ceremony for them, and unveiled the signs on the side of the highway. And working on projects like that and seeing them from beginning to end, and that's really rewarding for me. And I like to see things like that.
I mean, I'm one category of people that absolutely deserves a salute is the military.
I appreciate that, and I agree.
So, all right. Anything else you want to fill in?
I've probably talked enough today. I appreciate you having me on. Appreciate your time.
All right, man.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and good
sir.
luck. And we'll probably see you up there on February 1.
All right.
We'll be up there and covering that.
We'll be in Henryetta. There's a legislative session, I think, coming up. Oh, it may be after that, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and that probably be at Sony?
Yep, Shoney's.
Shoney's
And I think it might be on the 7th or 8th now that you mention it. So we'll see you February 1st.
All right.
All right.
We'll see you then. We'll see you soon. Remember to vote.